You know it's not going to end well, and it just rips your heart. It just rips your own heart out. You leave at the end of this feeling heartless. I'm gonna hate this when I edit it. Welcome to my booktube. Hey, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to be doing the wrap-up for April, so for the Owls Magical Readathon hosted by G over at Book Roast. For my owls, I chose to be a metal charmer. This was because I wanted something that was at least 5 books or more to challenge myself, because before BookTube I had only been reading like maybe 2 or 3 a month, and that was something that I really wanted to up, especially now that I've been working from home a lot and I've been spending a lot more time at home than usual, as most of us are because of the pandemic. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to just dive right into a whole bunch of books. This career came with 7 classes that I needed to take for owls. So the 5 required classes that I had was Ancient Runes, Arithmancy, Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, and Transfiguration, and then I had 2 optional ones, and so I chose Care of Magical Creatures and History of Magic. In my TBR video, I talked about wanting to also do the Animagus training if I had gotten through all of my 7 books, but I didn't think that I was going to. I was right, definitely didn't have time. But that's okay, because when I was looking at the prompts for the newts, it looks like I'm going to end up reading 12 books in August, so I think I'll be fine. Today I'm going to be going over all of the books that I did read. So these are the same 7 books that I talked about in my TBR, of course. For the books that I read, I didn't read them in any particular order. I just picked up whatever I felt like reading, read the whole thing, and then moved on to the next one. I will be doing another quick synopsis about what the book is about now that I've actually read them. I'll talk a bit about how I felt about each book. I do also want to preface, I know I said in a lot of my past videos that most romances really aren't for me. There was a lot of romance in pretty much all of the books that I read this month. It's not to say that I hate romance in my fantasy books, I just don't like it when a book is sold as a fantasy story and that's what I'm expecting and then the romance ends up taking over. I don't mind at all if there is romance as long as it seems like it could happen, as long as the relationship itself seems fun, and there are some aspects of romances that I do tend to really dislike. I really enjoyed Throne of Glass, for example, when I had read it before. I did not like the romances in there. When it comes to romance, I don't like the terms mate, like you are my mate, or any other sort of possessive terms. I'm all for it when characters want to commit to one another, I just don't like it when they're treated as a property. So that just was something that I really didn't enjoy about most of the romances in Throne of Glass. Other than that, I really enjoyed the story, so I'm not hating on it. I just wanted to clear that up. I don't hate romance. I am, however, a sucker for hate to love, as long as it's done well. I don't like it when it's completely out of nowhere. I like build-up. I especially love a slow build. I think that's all that I want to say about romance right now. So before, when I said it's not really my cup of tea, it's that there's specific parts of romances that just isn't for me, but there also are tons that I'm here for. The first book that I ended up reading was All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. This was a book that a friend had gifted to me by getting me a 3-month subscription for the Magical Read Crates. This book surpassed my expectations. I had seen some mixed reviews here on BookTube about it, where some people really hated it, some people really liked it, some people enjoyed it but hated half the characters. So it follows our main character, Amora. It's a first-person perspective of her. On her 18th birthday, she needs to perform a demonstration of her magic, which is soul magic. Only her family can use soul magic, and she needs to demonstrate to her people that she's able to control it, because apparently it's very dangerous. Everyone in her kingdom can only choose one type of magic that they're able to use, and then that's divided up between all of the islands, so each island has a specific magic type that they're able to practice on that island. So on her 18th birthday, during the demonstration where she's performing her soul magic for her people, something goes terribly wrong and she ends up needing to flee. This sets her off on an adventure with 3 other unlikely characters. She wants to prove to her people that she is worthy to be the heir of the throne, and one of the characters that she teams up with, she's also helping him try to get his powers back. This book was so much fun. It was colorful and beautiful, and I really enjoyed the descriptions of the islands and the little bits of culture that we get in each island. Of course, it could have been done in a bit more depth, but I still enjoyed it. When it comes to the characters in this, I do feel like some of them were very surface level and I didn't get to know them very well. Amora, even though she's our main character, I feel like I still could have gotten to know a lot more about her. Bastian, the pirate who she ends up escaping with and who she helps try to get his magic back, I feel like we got to know him decently well. And then there is another character, Farrak, who I feel was really done a disservice in this book, mostly because the main character, Mora, just doesn't like him very much. That's why we didn't get as much information about him. And then the fourth character, her name is Vatea. She's a mermaid. We did not get to know enough about her. I think I was most disappointed about that when it came to this book, because if I personally met this super powerful mermaid, I would want to get to know her. So what the heck, Amora? All in all, this was a really fun story, and I'll definitely be picking up the second book when it comes out. I think it comes out sometime in 2021, so next year, unfortunately, but yeah, I really liked it. It was not a letdown for me. So the next book that I picked up was Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This was also another really fun read. I read this one in just over a day. It was so much fun. This story is also a first-person perspective. It follows our main character, Jude. She has a twin sister, Taryn, and an older sister whose name I can't remember right now. Their parents were murdered by a fae. He murdered their parents because her mother had been his wife, had a child with him, which was their older sister, and had fled with the baby. According to his moral code, he had to kill her, but he also had to take in the children because they were his wife's children and therefore his responsibility. So Jude and her sister Taryn are two humans, and their older sister is half fae, half human, and they grew up in the fae world. Both Jude and Taryn really want to fit in, but they have very different ways in which they go about it, so it does cause a bit of tension between the sisters as well. Jude herself is very headstrong. She's really stubborn, really determined. She wants to fit in and doesn't want to bow down to the fae because some of the others really look down on humans and think of them as lesser than. There's also a bit of political intrigue going on, which is really exciting. I really enjoyed this. I wanted to pick up the second book so bad that it did take me a little while to get into the next book that I picked up. I kind of fell a bit into a reading slump because I just wanted to read Wicked King so bad. So Wicked King is definitely going to have to be on my TBR for May because I want to know what happens next. The next book that I picked up is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This one is for arithmancy. So this was about the magical properties of number 2, so balance, so I needed to pick a book outside of my favorite genre, which is fantasy, so I picked this dystopian. Scythe takes place in our world, but in the future. It follows our two main characters, Citra and Rowan. It is mostly another first-person story. We do get the perspective of a couple other characters as well. What this story is about is we are far enough into the future that humans have conquered everything, conquered death, there's nothing plaguing us anymore, and we're basically immortal. The only problem that humans are facing is overpopulation, so they have basically mandated murder. So there's a group of people called Scythes who go around and kill people to keep the population down. They're supposed to make sure that this is balanced across different races, ethnicities, age groups, and so on, so it is statistically proportionate to how people were dying in the past, but it's still at a lesser degree, so the population is still increasing. The Cloud has become the Thunderhead, which is kind of like the sentient being that governs everything. It takes care of building all of their roads. There's no more governments because the Thunderhead takes care of everything. The only thing that the Thunderhead doesn't control is the Scythes. Both Citra and Rowan are taken to be apprentices for one of the Scythes. However, only one of them can become his apprentice. Somehow it comes up that they end up being pitted against one another and only one of them can win, with the condition that the other one must be gleaned, which is the term that they use for killing. So that's to increase the stakes. I think I do want to do a full review of this book. I really enjoyed this. It was a good book. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first two that I read, and I don't know what about the timing of reading this, but it kind of put me into a bit of a reading slump. It took me 2 weeks to get through this. I can't even say that I had a lot going on life-wise that stopped me from getting to my next books. So because of that, that meant that I had to read the last 4 of my books in a week, which was, that was the time. The next 2 books I'm going to kind of go over together. For Transfiguration, I read A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer, and then for History of Magic, I read Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Both of these books were also my first time tabbing and trying to do a little annotating, so that was really fun. Both of them were very similar. They were both dual perspective, first-person books, both mostly romance-focused, both hate to love, and I really enjoyed both of these books. They were both a slow build, they were both pretty similarly paced. For the most part, this one got to the romance a lot faster than this one did. This one went a lot further and had a bit more adult content than this one did, in case you wanted to know some of that. But yeah, I'll go a little bit into each of these books on their own as well. For A Curse So Dark and Lonely, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It follows our two main characters, Harper and Wren. Harper is a girl from our world, and Wren is a cursed prince from this magical world. I think both of the characters are 18. I know we know that Wren is. I think Harper is as well. Harper has cerebral palsy and she lives in Washington, D.C. This story starts off as she's on the lookout for her brother and she sees this guy attacking another girl, and so she grabs a crowbar and goes to attack that guy, and then he takes her into this portal and she shows up in this other world where she meets Wren. The guy who kidnapped her is Wren's bodyguard, and through all of that she finds out that she's here to break a curse, and the curse, of course, we know is for true love. We know that the plan is for them to get together, and she is so distrusting of him, and it takes a really long time for things to build. I really liked this. It was fun. It definitely had some really, what I felt like was plot holes, or some really bizarre plot situations, I guess. But if you can look past that, it's super fun. It's really cute. I really liked the main characters, and like watching both Wren and Harper grow in confidence of themselves and begin to bridge their relationship and develop some sort of trust between the two of them. I also really enjoyed Gray as a character. I really liked him too. So overall, this book was super cute. It made me smile a lot. There were some times when I even threw my head back and laughed. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do a review of this one and Serpent and Dove, or I'll probably talk about both of them in the same video, but that's pretty much all I'm going to say about this one right now. I read both A Curse So Dark and Lonely and Serpent and Dove in the same weekend. The premise of this book is that there is a witch and a witch hunter who, through some sort of circumstances, end up married to one another, even though they are essentially mortal enemies. So he is a part of the church, and their motto is, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." So she needs to keep her identity a secret from him, although they start falling for one another, and it was so fun. The circumstances for which they end up married to one another were just so outlandish, in my opinion, but it was still fun. It was really weird to see how they justified that in the story and how the other characters justified it and what sort of reasons drove them to agree to it. I also really liked her relationship with her best friend. Their relationship was so cute. I really liked watching them together. Honestly, I just had a good time with this book. It was outlandish, the plot was definitely a little weird, but when Honey and Blood, the next book, comes out, I will also be picking it up. Even though some parts of it were very, like, WTF moments, I didn't care, because I knew what I was getting into with this one. I knew that it was going to be primarily romantic-based, and sometimes you just need a light, fun adventure like that. And it was also Hate to Love, it was also a slow build, and those just hit me straight in the feels, so it was good. The book that I read for Ancient Runes had to be something with a heart on the cover or in the title, so I picked Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This book really turned around for me. I almost DNF'd this book, and this was like 4 days before the end of the challenge, and I was panicking. I was like, what on earth can I read fast enough where I'm still gonna have time to finish that and the last book that I had, because it was so slow and it was uninteresting at the beginning. Like, I am a really big Alice in Wonderland fan. I love Alice Madness Returns. I kind of enjoyed the Tim Burton versions. I really liked Alice in the Tim Burton ones. But with this one, I wanted a bit more of the world building, just because there are so many different versions of Alice in Wonderland retellings out there. I feel like the atmosphere just wasn't really there. I almost quit this book so many times in the first like 200 pages. And then after that, it picked up, and it picked up fast. So that was good. Oh yeah, I didn't really tell us overall what this is about. So this is about the Queen of Hearts and her origin story, how she starts off being such a sweet, kind-hearted person to a heartless beast. Honestly, her transformation was kind of understandable. She does some shady things, and she ends up being a very not nice person by the end of it. She becomes literally heartless. It was so hard near the end in like a good, like, I didn't want to put it down kind of way, because she was so sweet at the beginning, and just the way that everything goes, you want to root for her, but you know it's not going to end happy. That's the whole point, is it's not a happy ending. And so that, I really liked that part about the book, was that we know it's not going to end well, and it just rips your heart, it just rips your own heart out. You leave at the end of this feeling Heartless. So yeah, it really did pick up. I would still recommend this book. It was good. The ending was great. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It surprised me. I almost quit. I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, got me right here. Last book that I read was for my Care of Magical Creatures prompt, so this was The Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. This is the first of the Witcher series. It is a series of short stories that follows Geralt of Rivia. He's a witcher, which is a monster hunter for hire, so he kills monsters for money to make a living. Geralt is also tied by fate to Yennefer and Ciri. I had a really good time reading this. I really liked this book. It was fun for me also because I did start with the Netflix series and the video game, which I kind of started simultaneously because I had come across Elliot Brook's channel and she just raved about this and I had to give it a try, and the video game seemed right up my alley for the type of games that I personally enjoy, and I really did like it, so this was great to get a lot of that backstory. Some of the short stories were so close. I was pretty impressed with how it went. Some of them were pretty different, but overall I'm not mad about it. I enjoyed the Netflix show, I enjoyed the book, I enjoyed the video game, it's all good. I think the biggest thing that I really appreciated about reading the books was they explain a bit more about the law of surprise, so I feel like that was really not done well enough in the show. I don't think I really understood it. I remember having to Google it. And this chapter, like, they just could have added a couple more lines of dialogue in the Netflix show and it would have made so much more sense, as well as explaining Pavetta's powers. That was totally glazed over in the show. But yeah, this book was really good. I'm also excited to continue the series. This has been something I have been meaning to get around to for quite a few months now, so I'm glad that I finally had that push in the right direction. So this month meant that I started a lot of series, and I have so many of them that I really want to continue, but I'm going to be doing the Asian Readathon that Cindy, Read with Cindy, is hosting, so I'm not sure how many of the next books of any of the series that I started this month I'm going to be able to get to in May. I'd like to get to a lot of them, but we'll see. Overall this month, I enjoyed all of the books that I read. I didn't DNF anything, which was great. It's not something that I do often anyway. I'm also really happy that I was able to finish all of my books, that I completed my owls, and that I passed, and I can move on to Newts in August, so that's great. If I had to choose one of my favorite books, I don't think that I could. I'd have to put Heartless as on probably the lower end. For the ones I enjoyed the most, I would probably pick Cruel Prince and Serpent and Dove. Ooh, and Curse of Dark and Lonely and All the Stars and Teeth. Everything else was just not as gripping as those four, so I feel bad. I feel bad that I'm not having like a top 3, but here we are. But that's everything that I have today. If you participated in Owls as well, let me know what your favorite books were. Let me know if you completed everything. If not, that's totally okay. G herself said that you don't have to play exactly by the rules anyway, so that's perfectly fine. If you didn't participate in Owls, did you have a TBR? Did you read everything in it? And how did your April go? Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. My next video is going to be my TBR for May as I figure out what I'm going to be reading for the Asian Readathon, but thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you and have a great day. Bye!